Welcome to the Mid Week Tease with me, Adelle Onyango, where I share some random and not too random thoughts on things. And in this episode, I want to talk about a specific type of discomfort that I just potently felt just yesterday, by the way. And no one really prepares you for this specific discomfort. It is the one that comes with finally standing up for yourself, especially after years of people pleasing or having weak boundaries, over explaining yourself, over giving, over accommodating, and just like allowing people to take advantage of you and your silence because you're so hell bent on keeping the peace because that feels safer than disappointing people. And I want to talk specifically about romantic relationships and friendships because hey, it gets very hectic inside there. And it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's just like you're trying to arrive as a different version of you that people just aren't used to. So back to my trigger. My goodness, I had such a hectic start to the week. Potent trigger. But luckily I have incredible girlfriends around me who just brought me back to earth. And the trigger was caused by somebody who I had allowed for such a long time to take advantage of me, take advantage of my empathy, my patience, my understanding, and honestly, like my lack of boundaries when it came to how I related to this particular person. I started standing up for myself. And I could tell with this particular person, and this was from way back when I started standing up for myself, there was friction in how we related with each other. What triggered me most recently is I was standing up for myself again, and I just felt uncomfortable. And I remember sitting in my car driving and just thinking, where's this discomfort from? Why am I feeling this when I should be feeling very proud because I'm standing up for myself, I'm defending myself, I'm protecting myself, I'm upholding a boundary. And I realized that it came from me doing something different after years of people pleasing, of having no boundaries with a specific person. This was something different. And that's where the discomfort came from. And when I say discomfort, it feels different for different people. It feels like anxiety. You might even start spiraling or overthinking. You might start replaying the interaction in your head. You might start asking yourself, like, am I a good person? Was I too harsh? Am I a bad person? Maybe I should, soften what I said. Maybe I should explain myself. You know what I mean? And what you're trying to do is restore comfort by falling back into your old patterns, right? And you're doing that because the discomfort just feels so unbearable. But what was my saving grace outside of my girlfriends who I could call and could ground me was the understanding that the discomfort wasn't coming from doing something wrong. The discomfort was coming from doing something different. And that realization really sat with me because I think very many of us have been conditioned to associate abandoning ourselves with goodness. I think when we were growing up and in very many romantic relationships, especially for women, we are told to be agreeable, accommodating, forgiving, emotionally available, easy to manage, understanding. You become the good woman when you don't complain too much, you don't make people uncomfortable. You just need to suck up your pain quietly and absorb it. You don't ask for too much. You're giving and always helpful. You tolerate, you endure. Yuck. And what happens over time is something that I think is actually quite dangerous. is you begin to learn that keeping other people comfortable keeps me safe. So, when you do all of this healing work that we're all about here, or the healing work that I've done, and you start to say no, you confront disrespect, you stand up for yourself, you stop overgiving, you stop shrinking, your body that earlier realized that keeping other people comfortable keeps me safe starts to interpret this new, more healed version of you who's saying no and standing up for herself as danger. It doesn't see it as empowerment. It sees it as danger. And sometimes it even feels like you get physical symptoms or feelings of the discomfort. Your heart is racing, your stomach is like, tight. You overthink, you're feeling guilty. And it's not because it's wrong of you to stand up for yourself or wrong of you to uphold a boundary, but because your nervous system is very unfamiliar with self-protection. Isn't that sad? Isn't that sad? There's this trauma response that psychologists talk about. It's called fawning, the fawn response. And it's essentially when someone learns to survive through pleasing others. I think I had a really bad case of that for the longest. Not anymore. The discomfort is there, but we move regardless, right? And this is when you learn to survive through pleasing others or like appeasing them. You're very over accommodated and you become what other people need you to be. And I think very many of us women are functioning from this place without even realizing it, because we've been told that's how we should be. So let's go deeper into like romantic relationships, because I feel like this is where this pattern gets exposed so clearly. Because in romantic relationships, when you struggle with boundaries, you can end up tolerating things you'd never want for someone you love. Sis, I have been there. Over empathizing. Hey. You over explain bad behavior. Someone is moving mad, but you're over explaining it. You minimize your hurts. You have been hurt, but you push it. You push it down. You push it down and minimize it. You start convincing yourself, nobody's perfect. They're just a troubled human being. They have mental health issues, or they had childhood trauma, or maybe I'm overreacting. Actually, yeah, me, I'm a bit too sensitive. Maybe they're just going through a hard time. Maybe if I communicate better. And even while you're doing this, what's happening is your needs keep being pushed aside. Sometimes you become so focused on understanding the other person that you stop understanding yourself. And in this journey of moving from fawning to being somebody who has a deep respect for myself, has boundaries, has the agency and power to stand up for myself even when there's discomfort, one of the hardest truths I've had to accept is some people experience your boundaries as betrayal because your lack of boundaries was benefiting them. So they get uncomfortable too when you stop. You stop over forgiving, over functioning, over pleasing, or even emotionally carrying the relationship. They get uncomfortable. They could retaliate. They could withdraw warmth. And they're not doing because they're trying to get back to the version of you that benefited them, which is a version of you that had no boundaries. And I don't know if you can relate to this, and I think very many women can. There is a point in unhealthy relationships that you get to the realization that, I thought this person loved me deeply, but actually, What was happening is they were deeply comfortable with my self sacrifice. They were deeply comfortable with my self abandonment. That's not the same as love. Sometimes you're thinking, yeah, I've been chosen. But really, what has happened is you're being tolerated because you tolerate everything. And one deep question to ask yourself is, what would this relationship look like if I stopped abandoning myself to maintain it? Let's get back to the discomforts because we had a completely different episode lined up. But after I had my trigger, I was like, oh no, I've got to talk to you about this. Healing into someone with boundaries can initially make you feel like a worse person. And we need to normalize that. I don't think we talk about this enough. I feel like when we talk about boundaries, we make it sound so glamorous and empowering all the time. But in real life, it comes with guilt, loneliness, grief, panic, second guessing yourself, spiraling, worrying that people are angry at you, worrying that you're becoming too hard, worrying that you're a bad person. And this is especially for those of us who are used to being the understanding one. We're so used to overfunctioning emotionally that when we finally prioritize ourselves, we feel selfish. That's exactly what happened to me with my trigger. And I had to consciously calm myself down and remind myself that discomfort is not the same thing as wrongdoing. Someone being unhappy with my boundary doesn't automatically make the boundary wrong. I had to remind myself that I am allowed to protect myself. I am allowed to stop absorbing bad behavior silently. And I really also had to understand, or rather, I came to the realization that a lot of healing is just learning how to tolerate this discomfort, right? Until you get to the point that the discomfort is not there anymore. That's really what it is. And this, by the way, is also tricky with friendships, friendships can also become incredibly complicated when you stop people pleasing, because sometimes your role in that friendship was the therapist, the fixer. You're the one who's always available. You're always flexible. Maybe you're the emotionally mature one. You're the one who always understands. And so when you stop overextending yourself, the friendship changes. It can even, feel a bit strained. And it's not because anyone is evil. It's just like the dynamic changed. Just like I've talked about romantic relationships, even in friendships, some of them survive just because one person is constantly self-sacrificing. And then when you start to do the work on yourself and realize this is no way to live, you then realize in that friendship, some people rarely ask you how you're doing. Some people only reach out to you when they're in crisis. Some people expect emotional labor that they never reciprocate. Some people are very comfortable taking, but very uncomfortable giving. And it hurts, right? It hurts. But you just need to understand that being easier to disrespect is not the same thing as being a good friend, or being a good partner, or being a good person. I'll never tire of saying this. Boundaries are not about becoming cold. They're not punishment or cruel or revenge or feeling like I'm bigger or higher or more superior than you. They're purely about clarity. They're about communication, and something that's very important to me right now, they're about self-respect. And you don't need everyone to agree with your boundary for it to be valid. That is so important for you to grasp. No one but you needs to sign off on that boundary. Because I think, especially recovered or recovering people pleasers will feel like if someone is upset with me, then maybe I'm wrong. Sometimes they're just upset because they no longer have unrestricted access to you. And that's a them thing. They're going to have to sort that out. Honestly, this week, the biggest thing that I want to leave you with is a rewiring of the discomfort. Maybe the discomfort you feel after standing up for yourself is not proof that you've become difficult. Maybe it's proof that you are finally breaking a pattern. Maybe your nervous system is simply adjusting to a version of you that no longer disappears to keep everybody else comfortable. And yeah, that can feel lonely at times. It can feel exhausting. But would you rather the exhaustion of constantly abandoning yourself? I think not. So, I will reiterate that discomfort that comes with standing up for yourself, upholding your boundaries, showing yourself self-respect, be it when it comes to a romantic relationship or a friendship where you were self-sacrificing and self-abandoning, that discomfort doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It just means you're doing something different. I really hope you connected with this episode. And if you did, do not forget to share it with someone you love. Thanks for listening to the Mid Week Tease, a Legally Clueless Africa production. Episodes go out every Wednesday, and you can learn more about us by going to legallycluelessafrica.com.